This is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by Sky Sports Boxing Head of Development, Adam Smith. Adam, how are you?
Very good, thanks, Danny. Just recovering from what was quite a weekend, not just in the boxing world, but generally in the sporting world. There was so much going on. I was watching Andy Murray till late in the night as well in the Indian Wells. So not a lot of sleep this weekend, but what an incredible night in Vegas. What a phenomenal fight, and enjoyed the Liverpool show too as well. So yeah, it was quite nice being a fan this weekend, Danny.
Well, let's talk about those, starting, of course, with Fury against Wilder, the third fight. What did you make of it, sitting there watching it as a fan and the kind of dramatic changes in fortune as it unfolded?
Gutted I wasn't ringside, probably the first notion. I was lucky enough to be there for the second fight. Actually watched it with Freddie Cunningham and Frank Smith. We went over for the weekend, and that was unbelievable. Tyson's performance, I thought it was one of the great fights, great British performances away from home by any fighter in many years. And then the third fight was even better than the opening two. I mean, the first fight was dramatic, of course, with the final round knockdown and the controversial draw. The second one, a wonderful performance by Fury. And then, you know, with the pandemic and the sort of different excuses that Deontay came out with, the new trainer, the sort of obsessive training that he'd gone through, and also, sort of Tyson's difficulties in the build-up with COVID and with his daughter and various other things, it sort of opened it up again, didn't it, for discussion? But I was pretty confident that Tyson Fury would win again. Just thought it was so one-sided, really, the second fight. But I think what developed on Saturday night was one of the great fights in the heavyweight division we've seen in many, many years. And I sort of always got the feeling that Tyson would prevail again, but I think even when he was down a couple of times in the fourth round, I mean, it was phenomenal, wasn't it? He was on the verge of win. I think Wilder had the great first round with the jabs to the body. It looked like he was thinking about something different, and then Fury almost stopped him in the third. Then he came off the canvas twice in the fourth, and it was one of those just great fights, wasn't it? And I just thought the way Fury coped with it, dealt with it, sort of readjusted. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And Deontay Wilder deserves so much credit for his heart, his guts, his courage. It was beyond brutal. It was unbelievable how he stayed in for so long. But it was one of those sort of great heavyweight fights, and an incredible end to what's been an absorbing trilogy, to say the least. And I think people sort of are talking about it as one of the greatest, and you look back at the likes of, I don't know, the Rumble in the Jungle, the Thriller in Manila, the night at Wembley with AJ and Klitschko, Lewis against, I don't know, I mean, Holyfield as a unification wasn't a great fight, but as a great moment for British boxing, the second one. And I don't know, there's so many fights over the years you can sort of compare it to. I was there for Bo Holyfield 2 with a fan man, and the first Bo Holyfield 1 fight was incredible. But I think it's got to be right up there as one of the great fights in night, and for Tyson Fury, one of the great performances as well.
Do you make Fury now, I mean, you probably thought this before, but do you make Fury now undisputed number one? Obviously, he hasn't got all the belts, but in your view, undisputed number one at heavyweight?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Tyson, when he went over to Germany and beat Vladimir Klitschko, made a real statement then. And of course, what he went through afterwards, with the belts going and the weight coming on and all the issues he had, and the fact that he's tackled them sort of face on and been very authentic about his struggles. And to come back, we were with him in Monaco a few years back, and he must have been, I don't know, touching 30 stone. And you're thinking, there's no way he can come back, not only become heavyweight champion, but get in a ring again. I mean, I think so what he's gone through has been phenomenal. He's come out with controversial stuff obvious times, and he is who he is. But he's entertained us, Rolly, hasn't he? And as far as pure boxing goes, he's been phenomenal. And what he's done, I think, in the Wilder trilogy is he has cemented his place, in my opinion, as the number one heavyweight in the world, and one of the great heavyweights of modern times. I think Anthony Joshua's defeat a couple of weeks ago obviously allows you to say that with more ease now, because AJ had 3 of the belts, 2-time champion. He's ducked nobody. He's got a phenomenal resume himself. But the fact that Usyk has taken over the mantle there means Joshua's got to rebuild and come again, and I'm sure he will. He's triggered the rematch clause, so he's very much still in the mix, AJ. But you've got to say, Tyson Fury's the man, and Oleksandr Usyk has 3 of the belts, and he has a fantastic win there and is undisputedly one of the pound for pound best there is. But you've got to say, as the heavyweight king, it's got to be the Gypsy King, hasn't it?
Fury now, he's obviously waiting in the wings for the winner of Usyk and Joshua's rematch. Where does he go in the interim? Dillian Whyte? Is that most likely, do you think?
Well, it'd be great, wouldn't it, for British boxing if it was Dillian Whyte? And I think Dillian deserves his opportunity. He's waited long enough. And apart from the mishap with Oleksandr Povetkin on their first occasion at Fight Camp, he's exacted revenge. He's got his own fight coming up against Otto Wallin. And I think, should he take care of that, I'd like to see him in there with Tyson Fury. He deserves it. I think it's a good fight for British boxing, world boxing, especially as we're waiting for AJ and Usyk, which is obviously a fascinating rematch. Many people already saying that is Joshua doing the right thing by taking that, but that's his competitive side. He wants to fight the best. A lot of people have said to me, Anthony's lucky that he's not got Fury and he would have lost easily. I don't buy that. I think he wanted to fight Tyson Fury. I think he still wants to fight Tyson Fury. He wants to test himself against the very best. And that's what I really admire about AJ. He's had his disappointments and none more so than what happened in the Garden, but he went in and with Andy Ruiz again, and he wrote that wrong. And you wouldn't write him off from doing the same thing with Oleksandr Usyk. He starts as an underdog, no doubt. And on viewing the first fight, it's going to be very, very hard for Anthony. He has to change up his tactics. He's got to do things extremely differently, I think. But I think Usyk will come on from that first fight. So I think it's a really hard fight again for AJ. But that's what he wants and that's what he craves. And I still think that Fury-Joshua match, whatever, for any belts, all the belts or no belts, is still a fascinating one for everybody, as is many others in the heavyweight division. I think everyone needs to take a sort of breath here. I think Anthony needs some time out to relax and take some holiday after his enormous amounts of training before the Usyk fight. But I think he's back in the gym. I would like to see him just take a bit of a recharge. I think Tyson definitely needs that. Spend some time with the family now. I think Deontay obviously needs that as well. He's going to be hurting a great deal from it. But nothing to be, he could be sad and disappointed he didn't get the win, but what spirit and guts and beyond the call of bravery in there. So in many ways, he came out a very gallant, loser or in many people's eyes, a victor as well as Tyson because of what he went through. So I think Deontay needs time to rethink. A lot of people are saying, he's going to retire. Tyson might retire. Let's all just take a breath. What we saw on Saturday night was one of the great heavyweight fights, one of the great ends to a trilogy. And, Tyson Fury crowned king. But we've also got Oleksandr Usyk, who's got 3 of the belts. We've got Anthony Joshua vowing for revenge. We've got Dillian Whyte waiting in the wings. We've got any number of other heavyweights who want to crack at it. You look at the likes of, Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois still going strong on the comeback trail. So there's lots out there and there's many matches that you can still make. And as we know, Danny, styles make fights, and Usyk got it absolutely right against Anthony Joshua. But who's saying that Joshua won't go on and do a number on Deontay Wilder or vice versa? Or, we don't know. That's the beauty of heavyweight boxing. Everybody now would say Tyson Fury is a huge favourite to beat an Anthony Joshua or an Oleksandr Usyk or probably anybody, but you just never know. He was down twice against Wilder. In this fight, he was down before. He's been down many times. He just finds a way, doesn't he? He's a natural fighter and he doesn't panic. I love the way he listened to Sugar Hill in the corner, getting him to go back behind his jab. I thought he was brilliant on the inside as well. And it just shows how difficult it is to beat Tyson Fury. And I wonder what John McDermott's thinking. You remember that? All those years ago when we were thinking, how did he not get that decision? It was, it's a funny old business, isn't it? But how Tyson Fury has grown as a fighter, as a man and as a champion. Respect and hats off to him. What a wonderful victory for him.
Now, talking of Joshua and his rematch with Usyk, how are negotiations progressing with AJ's team in terms of getting him back on Sky for the long term?
Absolutely. I mean, we began our the professional journey with Anthony Joshua on Sky. He's been a wonderful advocate for us, for Sky TV, an ambassador in many ways. His picture all over the place on the as you drive down the M4 and. He's been wonderful, and not just what he's done in the ring, but out of the ring, how he's looked after himself, how he's shone, hasn't he, and been the poster boy in many ways of British boxing over the last sort of 8-10 years. I think, look, I'm really, really excited about working with him again. The contract, as you know, is up, so we're talking, and there'll be negotiations ongoing. I'm very excited about it. As I've always said, I think Anthony will stay with Sky. I think he's a very loyal guy, and I think that he's got a great partnership with us. You know, we've done very well for him, and he's done very well for us. So why change that? It's obviously a compelling rematch. It's a rematch that's going to happen in the spring, as we found out was triggered. So he's got to concentrate on that. He's got to concentrate on getting that job right. And we would love to be with him every step of the way and every step of the way through his career. So, you know, it's unfortunate we don't have a broadcast deal with Tyson Fury. He's on BT, and we have to watch from afar and applaud and watch his development, and that's great. You know, I reached out to Frank and I reached out to Tyson every now and again, and it's a small business, as you know, and it's great that, you know, we can do that we can independently sort of report on fights on other channels and accept that last weekend was a great weekend in Liverpool with Liam Smith and the Cheeseman fight, and that was a great watch. And then in Vegas, you know, it wasn't our show, but we go again on Saturday in Newcastle. We focus on our business, and we believe that that's going to be fantastic as we go forward with Ben and with Todd. But we can also sort of take a moment to sort of admire what else is happening. It's wonderful for boxing, Danny. It's great when you get a fantastic weekend like that and people are talking about, you know, Fury, the fight, the drama, the Rocky-like, you know, story of it. Was it one of the great fights of all time? Yes, it was. Was it one of the great performances by a British fighter again? Yes, it was. Where does Tyson Fury rank? You know how much I hold Lennox Lewis in esteem, and I think that, you know, he's still got a journey to travel, Tyson. But if he cleans up against the likes of Whyte, Joshua, and Usyk, you've got to say he's right up there on a. Lennox was a 3-time heavyweight champion. Lennox had some real standout nights. You know, many standout nights. You look at Ruddock. You look at the Gallotta fight. You look at Holyfield 1 and 2. You look at obviously Tyson and more, and of course the dramatic ones he lost in and came back from. So that's a really full career. I think Tyson still has 2 or 3 years to go, and you know, if he can retire either undefeated or certainly, you know, sort of proving his point against 1 or 2 of the others, then you've got to take your hats off to him. But I think Tyson will really be remembered for being, you know, coming back from where he was, and that story, which is just such an inspiration, isn't it? And yeah, look, we hope he can go on, but it's up to him now, and I think he needs some time with his family, and you know, I think that sort of fight, that takes a lot out of heavyweights. You know, that was a hard fight, and both of them, you know, Tyson and Deontay need a good rest out, and I hope that they end up being very respectful to each other and end up being mates down the line, and I think they will be. You know, I've never seen as acrimonious a relationship as Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales had, which stemmed back to when they were kids on the football field, and I never thought they would end up even shaking hands, but you know, I've seen them go out for meals with their wives, and you know, I think that's what boxing does. You know, that was a trilogy that was just incredible, and the spirit of boxing and the years that go by. That Carl Froch and George Groves hanging out and having a tour now.
Going on tour together, yeah.
This is it. You know, no more push and pull. They're brothers in arms, and I think that's what will happen. And I think Deontay will be hurting a lot, but he's got nothing to be ashamed about. He was absolutely phenomenal on the night, and they just lost to the better man.
Now, it's great watching these fights from afar, albeit, you know, maybe some envy that they're not on your channel. What's it like watching the Liverpool show, for example, where a lot of the fighters in prominent positions were built and developed on Sky? Is that a different sort of emotion?
It's a good question, Tanny, as you always give me. Look, you try and separate. You know, it's business. You know, I work for Sky. I want to make sure that Sky are as successful as possible going forward. 30 years in boxing, and you know, four-year deals with Top Rank and Boxer, and the whole business behind us. So we're very confident and very excited about where we're going. But we can't have everything. Competition is fantastic. It's fantastic for fighters and for fans. Everything that's going on BT, everything that's going on DAZN, it's great. And yeah, of course, you know, you get very close to a lot of fighters, and when suddenly they're all taken away from you, it's difficult. But you have to reset and go again, and have to concentrate on what you're doing. So yeah, it is, I guess, slightly emotional watching it, but I just try and sort of separate that and think this is a good show, and I'm a fan like you are, and I love watching boxing, and I wanted to know who would prevail out of Smith and Fowler, like many people did, and I was really interested in the Williamson and Cheeseman match. It turned out to be an absolute, barn burner. And Shannon Courtney had her issues during the week. Of course, we were very close with her as well. So yeah, you do. It is interesting. And Peter McGrail turning pro, you want to keep an eye on things. So it's from an independent point of view. It's to keep up with everything, and it's also to admire that that there's great competition out there, and as good a shows as others might put on, we want to put on better shows. So it gives you, that little impetus to go one step further. And, how do we do on Monday morning? Right. What are we going to do this week that's different? How can we raise the bar again? That sort of thing. And we're lucky because we've got a really full schedule. We've got a great schedule from both sides of the pond. I'm very excited about going back to the Northeast. It's a huge, passionate base. And of course, with the takeover and the football, this is exactly the right time to be going. So, cannot wait to get up there for fight week. It's a tremendous card. It's a huge night for us on Saturday, and with the football on Sunday as well. It's a massive weekend for Sky and Newcastle. So yeah, we go again, but we also admire and we learn and we congratulate too. It's Liam Smith had a terrific performance, and Anthony Fowler can come again. And it was quite a hard watching Ted Cheeseman after all he's been through. Yeah, and it is, and his struggles as well. But this is boxing, and again, how brilliant he was on the night, how brave and right in it. And Williamson, what a fantastic win for him. And this is how it goes. And it's just, as always, Danny, I say my respect is for the fighters. We're looking to put the fighters first and foremost in the new era here on Sky Sports. That's why we didn't want Chris Eubank fighting a couple of weeks ago. We didn't feel it was right. That's why he's back this weekend. And I think that fighters come first. We have to remember that at all times. And we have to remember, like, the brutality that was dished up in Vegas, that it was our entertainment. We were all, oh my God, we were amazed. We were watching something quite spectacular unfold. But it's a tough sport. And they're human beings who've got families. And yes, they might be making a lot of money, but they need their rest, and they need their recharge, and they need to be looked after. And often, I know Deontay was furious with Mark Breland for, second time around for putting the towel in. But ultimately, the trainers and teams are there to look after their fighters, and the fighters are the bravest of all, and they'll always want to do it. And sometimes you have to say, hey, pull them back a little bit, or, just be that extra layer to try and protect. But fighters are incredible. And yeah, as you have, we've been gripped for many years, and they remain the reason we do this, and the epicenter for all we're about.